Hey guys, Ben Nash from Pivot Wealth here, and look, as a money nerd, I'm pretty pumped. It was the federal budget last night, and had a bit of a party. It was pretty wild, and I thought I'd bring you this short post to just sort of unpack some of the stuff that was covered, the things that you should be thinking about. What is the actual impact? And make sense of a lot of the words that were coming out of these people's mouths. So, look, firstly, just as a bit of an economic overview, the budget is really underpinned by a forecast of a pretty significant growth in over the next couple of years. So that's sort of a key driver of this spending, and obviously the budget, the government. They love spending because it makes them look really good, because people get happy when they get money, unsurprisingly. So they spent a whole bunch of money. There's a lot of really noise from the political parties around this, whether they should or shouldn't have done that. But the reality is that they sort of need to get the economy going back again after the shock that has been COVID. And look, there's a lot of people out there making a lot of noise saying, and in particular from the left side of the fence, saying that it's, that they've used these assumptions and they shouldn't have. But the reality is, I think we've performed so well through COVID as a result of this spending. So it's certainly not something that's sustainable for the long term. And my view is that you can't keep going through these economic cycles where we're just spending heaps of money and keep getting into a worse off position. And at some point, you're going to have to pay the piper. But I suppose that the reality is that time is going to tell when it comes to when that's actually going to happen. And in my personal view, I don't see it happening anytime soon. The government seem committing to spending. They could probably kick the can down the road for at least another decade or so. I think maybe less than that. Time will tell. But my personal view is that, and actually I should just say that none of this is financial advice, and you should, speak to a financial advisor with a magnificent beard. But yeah, my view is that it will go actually better than probably what they've forecast, because that's what the recent past has shown us. We're in a strong position. People be banging down our door when we open the borders up, and that's going to stimulate further economic recovery as well. So yeah, that's sort of the economics of stuff. I think it's a budget in terms of the actual, and I'm going to go through some of the key measures that have been announced and the things to be thinking about around this. But a lot of winners from this budget. We've got a lot of stuff for women, well overdue. Some stuff for people, older people, and pensions, and they've relaxed a few of the laws, which I think make actually a lot of sense there. And businesses getting some tax breaks around their spending and driving that spending further, because the government knows that it's business that's actually what's keeping this thing going. So look, in terms of the super, as I mentioned, yes, for the older people, and it's not really too much of our audience, but if you're above the age of 67, you no longer need to work to contribute to super. So that's sort of cool. If you're 67. There's some downside of stuff for older people as well, which I won't get into. One of the really interesting things that came out of the budget is the First Home Super Saver Scheme. They've increased that. That's where you can make tax deductible contributions into your super fund and then take the money out of super to buy your first home. Now, the limit was $30,000, and you could put in up to $15,000 each year. Or over a few years, and then take 30 grand out of your super and put it into a property. Now, there are some complex rules around this, so please don't rush out and jump in until you understand the risks and the implications here. But previously, you could put in $15,000 a year. So basically, for us, like if we're looking at it's May today, you could basically put $15,000 into your super fund today. And then you could put $15,000 into your super fund on the 1st of July. You get a $15,000 tax deduction in each year, and then you take it out and go buy your home. So for someone that's getting close to buying a home, that knows that they've got it on their roadmap, that it can make a lot of sense, because why not get the $15,000 tax deduction? But the government have increased that limit to $50,000 now, but they didn't increase the annual limit from $15,000. So now, in order to get $50,000 in, because you can only count $15,000 each year, you need to do it over like a 4-year period. Now, it doesn't need to be four times 365 days, because you could do 15,000 today, you could do 15,000 on the 1st of July, you could do 15,000 on the 1st of July next year, and then you got 45,000 that you could take out of your super. And for a couple, that's $90,000. That's a big amount of money, and it certainly helps. Again, it requires careful planning, because when your tax brackets are increasing, then it ties into the tax that you pay. So there are some risks there once again, but very interesting and a step in the right direction. I would love to see them get rid of that $15,000 a year limit, because then you could just crank 50 grand into your super, get a $50,000 tax deduction, take that bad boy out, and go buy a property quite quickly. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. They've eliminated, for people on lower incomes, and this is a really good thing, I think, that for people that earn previously, if you earn less than $450 a month, no one had super contributions were not compulsory, but they've eliminated that. So that's good, especially for people that are back in the workforce, maybe only working a little bit or on lower incomes. I think that's great. Some more pension stuff, which is not really that relevant. Early release of super for people that are suffering from family and domestic violence. So there's the ability to access super. Now, I think that's good in terms of it allows people to access their super, but I think it's actually pretty crappy in that you've got people that are coming out of a situation of domestic violence, and then the government should just give them some money. Then they're depleting their super fund. Then they're probably, if they're in that situation, the stats show us that these people have lower super balances already. Then they're depleting their super. So while access to cash is good, I think that that's a little bit of like the early access to super that the government did in COVID, where they announced it as this awesome thing that they're doing, but really they're just letting people sabotage their own future. So I don't know, write a letter on that one. Tax cuts. So there's some tax cuts coming through for basically everyone with an income up to $120,000. It's cool. It's not a lot of money. Basically, if the sweet spot is like 50,000 up to 90,000, if your income's in that bracket, you're going to get $1,000 extra a year, which is nice. And yeah. Employee share scheme. So this one's really cool, that historically the government, for people that work, and this is mainly tech people, but for people that worked in a technology business, when they leave their employer, that creates a taxing point for these shares. Now, in my view, that's not really fair, because for people that want to keep their shares, they have to pay this tax, and they may not have the money. They may not have the cash money. They got the money in their shares, and maybe they want to keep their shares. So I think that's a really good one for technology workers. It just gives you a bit more flexibility around that. And some of these tax bills can be pretty big. So I think that's a great initiative. Freezing Medicare levy. So that's, again, it's something that's not a lot of tax, but it's going to save you a little bit of tax. So that's good. Self-education expenses. They're getting rid of those limits. So that's a good thing as well. If you want to do things like have an introductory financial education session with a financial advisor. Those things, and short courses, educating yourself basically on anything, tuition, textbooks, all of that sort of stuff. You can get not have to reduce the amount that you claim. For businesses, it's quite good that they've increased the temporary full expensing of all eligible costs, which is basically most expenses that a business incurs. So it allows a business to invest back into their business and write off the tax deduction in the full year. Also, for businesses that run at a profit, they can carry back the loss against They can carry back the loss against previous year's tax that they've paid, which is a good boost, and it allows for some really strategic business planning for businesses that have large capital expenses on their business plans. I think, there's a bunch of stuff around aged care, which is fantastic. They've that followed on from the work off the back of the Royal Commission and their bolstering protection for people in aged care, which I think is really good for the country. And it's good spending as well in the stimulus that it's there. There is some increase for unemployed people, upping the job seeker allowance and certain areas, a bit more money for people that are working in regional areas as well. And one of the big measures that the government have announced is around this childcare subsidy and rebate. And I know that for the people we work with, some of them spend like 40, 50 grand a year on childcare. It gets really expensive. So what they've done is that they've said that for a second child, that they're increasing the amount that you can claim by 30%. So for families that were earning, that were previously above the childcare income threshold. So think about you're on a $400,000 or $500,000 income, previously not eligible. The cap I think was about $320,000 in the past, that you couldn't get any money back from childcare. That's now changed. So for your second child, you get at least 30% because we're adding that on. And in addition, what they've done is that they've eliminated the $10,000 cap on the amount that you could claim back. So we've got a lot of clients and you get halfway through the year and then you max out that cap and then you're paying full freight for the back end of the year. So that is really good because, and it's, as silly as it sounds, that living is expensive. And in particular, Sydney, and Melbourne, in the big capital cities, housing is really expensive. So it's hard for all people to really get ahead. I think this is a great measure. Childcare is an important thing that allows people to work. And I don't think it's fair that there is no support for people just because they earn more money. So that's really good. And yeah, that's the wrap, guys. So I hope you found that useful. There is, like I said, a lot of winners there. There's some good opportunities for some smart planning. And yeah, hope you found that one helpful.